Now, what story is that? Well, it involves a highly classified National Reconnaissance Office program called Sentient. Now, describing Sentient becomes a little bit of a challenge just simply because there's not a whole lot known about it. But there was one journalist who really dug in on it when it first surfaced in 2019. There was no connection to UAP at the time. And ironically, you've actually seen her on this channel, journalist Sarah Scholes, who writes for various publications. This particular article was published in The Verge. And she wrote a big expose on Sentient. And again, there's very little known about it. But here's her description of what Sentient is during, as she used it in that article, I should say. Sentient is, or at least aims to be, an omnivorous analysis tool capable of devouring data of all sorts, making sense of the past and present, anticipating the future, and pointing satellites towards what it determines will be the most interesting parts of that future. Now, that's a heck of a mouthful to describe a classified NRO system, but that is essentially what this thing is. So I was incredibly intrigued by then what Kyle had sent over to me, which was a PowerPoint presentation about a UAP sighting that was referenced just like the tic-tac. And they use those words, tic-tac. Now, let me go ahead and pull up some of the documents that I then dug in on what Kyle got and realized there were actually more that were released by the NRO. But when I say quietly, I mean quietly. I looked far and wide. The NRO put these on their website in a very kind of confusing, convoluted way of once they release records, it just goes in like this massive list of documents. It's very cool, but you have to have a lot of patience to go through it and figure out exactly what is where and where is what, because it does get a little bit confusing because it's just kind of a mishmash of all these different releases on all sorts of different topics. But what I realized with Kyle contacting me was that there was this sighting on 6 May 2021 of a UAP by the Sentient system. Now, here's one of those documents that were released, and I'll go over two of the PowerPoint presentations and then some emails. But you can see here, and I'll go through it and it gives the full time in Zulu, 6 May 2021, Sentient redacted, image processing detected a possible airborne object 78 kilometers southeast of, and they redact that location for obvious reasons. They don't want us to know where they're essentially watching. The object was small, less than 10 meters, and did not match the visual signature of typical aircraft detections. The object did, however, vaguely resemble similar detections of airborne objects by U.S. Navy aircraft and surface vessels in the blank operating areas, unidentified aerial phenomena in parentheses. Now, why that redaction is there, I'm not really sure. We know the detections, or at least the very publicly known ones, off the coast of the East Coast in Virginia, I believe it was, but more famous, the ones off of the coast of California. So why they couldn't name those operating areas, I'm a little surprised, but it could just be the reviewer themselves not knowing that that was known to the public and just went ahead and redacted it. Going on to the bullet points, there is a rough similarity to the previously reported tic-tac shape. So interesting line there, because again, you don't see a lot of the tic-tac references in documents that have come out. There's been some leaked ones. I would argue those leaked ones were not official government documents, but that's another video. But you generally don't see this, generally. So that was a very cool find to see that they're recognizing the Navy sightings, the tic-tac shape, and the fact that they are unknown. The object was likely not a sensor artifact or focal plane anomaly, although more in-depth imagery analysis is warranted. Very cool line there, because quite simply a lot of people would then lean towards those skeptics and debunkers out there that this was some type of sensor anomaly, but rather this was an observation that they connected to other Navy observations and were ruling out sensor artifacts or focal planes. even though they say that more in-depth analysis is warranted, maybe giving leeway to it possibly being an anomaly. Sit tight, because that one will likely be put to bed for you here in the next few moments. There were no correlating tracks present in redacted reporting, nor was there any correlating ELINT or SIGINT in also redacted reporting, despite time coincident redacted access / collection. Obviously, a little bit difficult to figure out what systems that they're referring to. Obviously, classified ones they don't want to talk to you about, and they were saying that there were no correlating tracks, so maybe those systems didn't pick it up for whatever reason. Sentient detections did, however, detect the presence of the prob, and then a bunch of redaction there, in the same imagery 25 kilometers to the west. In recent reporting, the redacted has been associated with command and control, or what they call a C2 activities, as well as more traditional telemetry and space functions. The simultaneous presence of this high-interest vessel is notable, although possibly merely coincidental. So, still makes it very difficult here with the redactions. Quite possibly they're referring to some type of command and control activity. Is this a surveillance drone of some kind? Is this some other type of equipment that's associated with whatever that high interest vessel is, as referred to here? Let me see if I can zoom in just a little bit more there for you. Sorry, guys. But there's the high interest vessel quote. So was it a coincidence? Is there some kind of connection? NRO didn't know, but it was worthy of obviously talking about. This was an interesting line. Confidence is relatively low in this detection, but the potential linkage to similar phenomenon off of redacted, obviously a location, may warrant further investigation. Now check this out. Here's the next couple of pages. Page denied, 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 denied. Look at all that. Now, these last two have what's called non-responsive records, so they're claiming that these two had nothing to do with the sentient UAP connection, but all of these don't have that, which means that they are. So the question mark is, what is it? Are they the photographs? Are they the images? What exactly would that be? Not really sure. But let me go to another one for you. This was another PowerPoint presentation that was also about the same UAP detection. This is a different document. Sentient Operations Highlight. Detection of possible UAP near redacted 6 May 2021. So it goes through a lot of the same bullet points, but there's a little bit more here. Remember I told you that sensor anomaly concern may be essentially put to bed for you? Well, here's this. The object, meaning the UAP, whatever it was also detected / visible in a second over water image shot in the same area 15 seconds later. What does that mean? That now we have likely either multiple sensors or multiple shots, doesn't matter, but essentially ruling out a sensor anomaly of some kind. That's incredibly important in situations like these, because when you do only have, let's say, one piece of imagery, then a sensor anomaly has to be taken into consideration. But when you have multiple images, but it's not in every image, now all of a sudden you're talking about likely a physical object of some kind. What it is obviously still on the table, but you can essentially rule out a sensor anomaly in most cases when you have that second or multiple types of images. The last thing I'll point out about this one when it comes to the wording, this detection has been shared with the UAP Task Force, redacted, and NGA, and then redacted, quite a bit of redaction here, for further analysis and coordination. This was a great line because this now shows us the type of coordination between the task force, the UAP task force, and likely now ARROW, which is the newest rendition of that group. Don't worry memorizing the acronyms. I'm sure it'll change in about an hour. But there's coordination there. And now we have an idea of the types of systems that NRO is using to detect UAP, and then the type of information that they're sharing with the task force. But then here we have the same thing that we ran in on the last one. Page after page after page denied. Just keeps going and going and going. What are these? Photographs? We're not really sure. You can see here, yet again, we've got non-responsive records. So we'll take that at their word, but you still have quite a few. Here's another one that it doesn't say that. Well, clearly they don't want to tell you about what's going on here. Conclusions and way ahead was one of the final slides. Yes, there was some what they considered non-responsive records, but one of the final slides with content anyway in the presentation, conclusions and way ahead. There are a range of potential hypotheses regarding the identification of the object, none of which can be completely ruled in or out at this time. Interesting redaction here. Redacted Air Force aircraft, e.g. redacted from tail on aspect. Now, what type of Air Force aircraft are they referring to here that's redacted and they can't tell us? It was kind of intriguing to me. I'm kind of curious what they're referring to. Second item on the list, not ruled out, but also, not ruled in either, was a weather balloon. The third was space debris much closer to imaging vehicle. So does that mean that the imaging vehicle was in space? Likely. For some, that's definitive. I'll side on a little bit of caution there that I won't definitively say it, but likely the imaging vehicle was in space. Or other, that's another one. These detections and supporting data were shared across NRO directorates with NGA and with UAP task force elements. Feedback has been extremely positive and appreciative of the contribution. Detection is illustrated of the utility of blank algorithms, or redacted, I should say, when processing large image files, tremendously reduces but does not eliminate human exploitation burden. The same sentient redacted processing strategy that resulted in this detection could be applied to redacted EO collections off of redacted in areas where multiple detections have been previously reported. This was an interesting and very easily overlooked line, in my opinion, in areas where multiple detections have been previously reported. These PowerPoint presentation slides that I've gone over are all about the same UAP event on the same day. What areas have multiple detections that have been previously reported? What does that tell you? That there's a lot more to find. I have already filed cases, as you can imagine, for those specific detections, trying to, if I can, find out the location, but likely I will not. However, even though the location is redacted, hopefully we can start to see patterns of what they are seeing with this type of UAP. Are they using the tic-tac descriptor in all of them? Well, that would be fascinating, because that would be a common trait through everything. Are they all different shapes? Are they described in different ways? Who knows what I'm going to find out, if anything, on that. But it was a very interesting line that, again, I want to make sure you guys don't overlook.